Hello. Hi, friends. It's
Good
true.
morning.
We're here. It's Friday. We survived another work week, and it's time for CANNAfact Friday Live, episode 6. If you're just joining us for the very first time and you're wondering what CANNAfact Friday is, it's a weekly live show right here on LinkedIn Live where we share stats from research done about the cannabis industry, and then we provide context on what it all might mean. My name is Adriana Hemans. I'm the VP of Strategy at ISA, which is a research firm based in Los Angeles. Although today I am broadcasting from lovely Wichita, Kansas. So if you hear me whispering, it might be because there's a neighbor nearby and I don't want them to hear me talking about something illegal in the state. But hopefully that won't happen. I'm also joined today by my co-host, David Palachuk, who is the author of the first and best-selling book on cannabis branding bud, the commercialization of cannabis. Welcome, David.
Hi, Adriana. Thank you. And we'll make sure that the police don't storm your spot in Wichita, Kansas.
Yes.
Oops. Shouldn't have said the location. Anyway.
Just don't say my address. We'll be fine.
Yes. Well, thank you, and good morning to you, Adriana. I'm pretty excited about today's show. We've got Kerry Bennett. And we're excited. And as you said, pretty much every week on Fridays at 10 a.m., 1 p.m. EST, we spend time picking out the data that interest us during the week that caught our attention, and we bring in a guest to talk through it. So we're pretty excited about that. Most importantly, we're excited about the folks that listen in, and we'd love you to participate. So there's a chat, and as we go along, please feel free to join in and ask any questions you may have. We're happy to answer them and include you as we move through some of the data. We're here to inform and educate and mostly have fun. So we're pretty excited about that. That said, I would like to introduce our guest today, Kerry Bennett. Why don't we bring Kerry out? Kerry is the Director of Operations for STEM Holdings. Good morning, Kerry.
Welcome,
Hey.
Kerry.
How are you?
Great.
So good.
I'm going to give the official Kerry Bennett opening right now, an introduction. So Kerry is the Director of Operations at STEM.
Hi, Jeremy. Let's go data.
And Kerry has been has had 20 years in organizational leadership, both experience in public and privately held companies. Following his service in the Marines, thank you, Kerry, for that. He was recruited to Hawaii's tourism, and that must have been lots of fun.
It was great.
And bookend with that is the financial crisis, which came in the 2000s, and Kerry joined the banking industry and worked for Bank of America to develop and lead some of the retail banking teams there, and then finally left to become the president of Canna Organics, an award-winning cannabis company and cultivator here in Washington State, which I know very well. And now Kerry serves as the regional director of operations for STEM Holdings with a focus in Oregon. Welcome, Kerry.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
You have such an interesting and diverse background, Kerry. And I love our conversations because obviously you know so much about business and you're out here running companies, but you're also very focused on the plant itself. And actually,
started touching the plant in 98, was in handcuffs the first time in Texas in 99, dodging helicopters in Hawaii in the early 2000s. So there's the official Kerry Bennett, clean record, and then there's the don't search the internet too hard record. And then legalization happened, right? So I was finally able to take, a lot of us come from the black market in varying capacities, and here we are. So I'd always bet on legalization, but I had a child when I was 20, and I just didn't have the opportunity. I couldn't bank my entire future on the black market. So I had to go a little bit more traditional and just run a dual stream. And the bet paid off. Everything gets to come together, and it sets you up in a good position to help lead organizations. So yeah, I'm very, very blessed for sure.
Yeah. And that's such a great perspective, having both of those perspectives in your background. So we're really excited to talk about stats with you.
Oh gosh.
So what we're going to do first is we're going to go through how we traditionally do a stat on CANNAfact Friday. We're going to throw up a slide with a few key points and discuss it. Okay. And then after that, we're going to move into something a little different. We're going to do a little quiz show style of stat sharing, and we'll have Carrie and the audience guess those answers. But let's kick it off first with the appellation designation. So I think this is sort of an interesting entry point, right? And it sort of makes sense that we're talking about it here while I am in Kansas, although we're going to be talking about California and other growing regions in California. California, of course, is sort of known as the epicenter of cannabis culture, and I sort of agree with that, right? It's the place where we're sort of like the trendsetters in cannabis in many ways, and the West Coast in general is. So we see this trend, right, towards regulating appellation designations. So what that means is in the world of wine, for example, if you're growing your grapes outside of Napa Valley, you can't put on your wine label that they're from Napa Valley. There's some protection there against people doing that. So the idea is, why not do the same thing for cannabis? Like, why not have a special designation for the weed that's grown in Humboldt, another one for the weed that's grown in Monterey, Emerald Triangle. But we wanted to know, is this something that consumers actually care about? Are they going to pick up a package that says grown in Humboldt and say, ooh, this is the one for me. I need this one. So we surveyed consumers across the US, and we found out that 52% had no preference. But probably not surprisingly, the county that stood out is the one that people are most interested in purchasing products from, is Humboldt. It has almost a mythological status as a growing region. And then also, I just wanted to share, we do ask open ends. So it was like, give people a chance to share with us why they feel a certain way about a certain growing region. And you can read a quote from it from someone who answered our survey and is a grower himself. So yeah, any thoughts about this, Carrie or David?
Well, my first thought is the Humboldt inclusion does not surprise me whatsoever. Glad to see that group over there is still getting the recognition that they absolutely deserve. Mm-hmm. The 52 no preference and the 7 other, the 6 on Boulder, I would be curious what the 7, what the spread was on that. Mm-hmm. But really, overall, the 52 no preference at this stage of the legal cannabis industry doesn't really surprise me just yet.
Mm-hmm. Hey, Carrie, I've got a couple of questions for you. I look at these stats and I think very much the same way you do. In the sense that, okay, Humboldt is getting recognition, people are thinking about this, but when I moved from New York to Washington in 2006, I heard everybody here in Washington talking about BC Bud and, how it was amazing. And there's this folklore, right? There's this mythical sort of these stories that develop and even develop over time. They become this folklore. And I wonder, to a certain degree, if people aren't maybe nostalgic or hearkening back to something that they remember as a kid, but don't necessarily, understand the difference between cannabis that's grown in Humboldt or somewhere else, especially when it's indoors, right? So,
right.
So my thought is these are more mythical or folkloric tales that people remember from the past, and they're more nostalgic about them than anything. Does that resonate with you?
It does. Absolutely, it does. And a matter of fact, not only does it resonate, but it also brings to me the contrast of those consumers or even employees that are just now getting into cannabis. Largely, we've given, I say we as though we have a responsibility. I just don't know what the mechanism is. We really haven't provided that. Why would yourself or myself really see BC as something special? And for me, it goes back to, let's pretend that we're in Kansas where Adriana is, and something's coming in, and it's like, oh, this is from BC, or oh, this is from Cali, or whatever the case is. There was that hype to it and that enthusiasm on where it was being brought in from. And I'm not really seeing that modern day. I've got some people that I've spoken to in the industry they're young, they're 21 and they're coming in, and it surprises me what they don't know. Now, it also surprises me what they do know, but maybe they don't even know the name Ed Rosenthal, or some of the big breeders, or just the things that I kind of fanboy and geek out on. They look at me like, oh, you're just a middle-aged man. You're flashing back to the 69 GTO. I'm like, cool. But at the same time, I do think that indoor growing, notwithstanding that, I do think that as our legal markets mature and continue to spread across the U.S., that you will see an allure to a West Coast or a curiosity to the upper Northeast, right? There's some groups that are just slaying it up there. And largely on the West Coast, you offer something from the East. It's like, maybe, maybe not over the last 5 years. But now it's like, yeah. You guys and gals are throwing down, like, bring it. So I think it's going to evolve.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we also were asking people as part of that survey, like, if you did choose a certain region that you were saying, yes, this is the one I prefer, why? What characteristics do you associate with it? And what was interesting is that it wasn't the descriptors they were using. They were saying things like reputation of the people who were there, trust in the growers. It was about the people who were producing, not about the product itself. I mean, potency was in there too, but it wasn't in the top two.
Oh my gosh, I was so happy to see potency.
Number 3.
Oh, get it out of here.
Happy Friday, Anthony, and happy weekend eve, Sam.
So Carrie, talk about that for a moment. Obviously people walk in these days to a shop and, they're like, what's the highest THC? Nobody's really talking about terpenes.
Yeah.
By the way, you've got to call out that Lena Lul shirt we all love. But, no one talks about the terp profiles. Nobody talks about other cannabinoids. It's always about the THC.
Right.
Would you talk through that for a minute?
Oh, gosh. Without getting, I'm very passionate on this subject, so I want to be careful. I remember in the black market days, testing was someone gave you the sandwich baggie, you put it on your nose, you got excited or you didn't, you tried it, and if you called that person back to ask for more, you just passed testing. So the fact that we're going in and looking at labels and making a decision, based on numbers, I get it. I do get it. I get what it implies, but I'm very quick to remind people, if you're trying to get beyond a doubt absolutely ripped, if that's your thing, the highest I have ever gotten was on the ugliest outdoor Puna butter from Hawaii, and it was like a 13%. And I had to tell my team, hey, I just need to sit for a minute. Like, what is this? And then I've had 29s or, whatever, these really high ones, numbers, and you're just waiting going, where's anything? So I don't think the numbers translate into the experience. I heard one time, and I don't disagree with it, that you put 10 cultivars on a table, and the one that the customer resonates with the most from a smell perspective is probably how they're going to have the best experience.
Yeah, Sam in our audience is agreeing with you here, Carrie, and he's saying it's interesting to see how many think THC levels are an end all be all.
I agree. I could not agree more. And then, as much as of a terp, flavor chaser as I am, I also don't think I applaud people that are putting the terpene profiles on their products and the percentages. But even then, it's deceiving, because you look at like a Skittles, which is just such a really loud, unique cultivar, and it does not boast high terpene numbers, but yet it is incredibly distinct. If you've got real Skittles, you know it. So I do wonder if maybe in time we'll find out it's really the combination of the different components, not, a scale this way, but in other words, here's your plate. How many potatoes and peas and a piece of chicken? What are the portion sizes? How do they work together to create an experience?
Right. Mm-hmm. It's funny you said that. Last week, Marco Hoffman was our guest, and Marco is brilliant. Mm-hmm. And what he said was,
Saints and Sinners, right?
Sinners and Saints. Yeah.
Sinners and Saints. My bad.
Among many other brands.
Shout out Marco.
But what's so interesting is he spoke about last week. He spoke about when he was younger and he studied physics and science. He learned about the space-time continuum, and prior to that, he never had really connected space and time. And what he said last week was that essentially smell and benefit, are connected, which is pretty much what you just said. That if it smells right, and it has that balance of all the things we're looking for, and it just sings to us, then more often, once we consume it, it will also sing to us in that way. And I think it's interesting to tie it all together to understand the full effect, as opposed to just looking at one cannabinoid or one component and say that's
overly simplistic view. We have a comment from Jeremy Kinzer. They really use that as a selling point when you go into the dispensaries in Los Angeles, the Valley. My nose leads the way for me. So it sounds like they're doing some consumer level education in dispensaries now to that point, which I think it will be great in helping people discover what works for them.
I'm not really the smartest person in the room when it comes to technology, R&D. I'm more the visionary, but I've always wondered, I know states' laws differ so greatly that some you can have a sniff jar, some you cannot, some are pre-packed, some are deli style. And maybe I just need to ask my own team this versus blurting it out here, but I've always wondered, and if it's out there, then it shows how ignorant I am. But could we get a small portion of terpene from a plant and create like a candle type wax? And that way the customers can really, especially in states like Washington where it's pre-packed, right? Hey, this is what it's going to smell like when you open that jar. This is what you should expect.
Interesting.
Yeah, here, we can waft it off. And in Oregon, where it's deli style, they have little tricks like the little hand fans. They can open it and blow it. And you're like, oh, okay, not bad. But for me, I want to get in there and crack it open. Just, what is this going to do? Is this worth the money?
Take a big sniff. We have a comment from Sam Fournier. I hope I didn't butcher your name, Sam. Here in Massachusetts, customers come in and just say, give me the highest potency flower you have. And trying to explain that if you like the effects of the cannabis, try others that look and smell similar, and you'll probably like it.
Yeah.
One thing which dockside cannabis does here in Washington State is they typically have a small area where they explain what terpenes are. They've got black pepper to describe myrcene. They have caryophyllene. They've got other natural components to talk about how these components exist not only in cannabis but in other plants and other things as well. So I think people are really surprised when they walk in past this terp stand, if you will, and they start to see black pepper, they start to see lavender or chamomile or some of the other things that contain these terps, and they start to put it together. I think too, the entourage effect is something that we speak about here, but the entourage effect doesn't stop at cannabis. Terpenes are in everything, and it's important to understand that and to realize, again, aromatherapy, I think, is the best example. People understand that lavender relaxes us. People understand that pine and citrus excites us. It's the same thing.
Sam commented also putting terpenes in a diffuser, which is a great idea. Thank you, Sam.
Oh, right on. Diffuser. I have not personally tried that one. Sam, you've given me something to do over the next week. So shout out, Sam. Appreciate you. That's pretty awesome.
And I think the use of a diffuser is great because, again, it brings us back to aromatherapy, and aromatherapy runs on all these terps and makes us feel similar, the effect of them. So I believe, I would like to see in the future people talk about terpenes and cannabis like they do aromatherapy. It's more people understand it. It's more understood by the masses. If you go in and buy an air freshener or a candle or those things, you you understand it better. Where you go in and you think about terpenes and cannabis, and all of a sudden it's a whole new subject and very confusing for people. It's really not.
And I can't help but think that it's also not going to be the end point. I mean, as much emphasis as I place on terpenes and just chase flavors, that's, in my mind, that's all that matters. There's a particular cultivar that Archive did called Dosilato, and historically it's a very low tester. And it really just didn't do well in the marketplace, namely because it was a low tester, right? And I had some, the former squad I was with, Canna, when I started, they were running it. And I described it as the perfect Saturday morning. And I would hand it to people that I knew were going to do something on a Saturday, like surf or hike or whatever it is. And I would never bias anyone. I would just say, hey, if you're going to, consume in the morning and you're going to do something active at the risk of disrupting your activity, would you try this? And just shoot me a text, shoot me a call, let me know what's up. And it is amazing that almost, I'd say 95% of the time, they were just going, oh my gosh. This one guy said he was not a weightlifter, but an athlete. I can't remember what sport he was in, but a gymnast. So he kind of had that real balanced body kind of a thing. And he said that on a Saturday morning that he would put this big pack on and go do 5 miles. And at the end of the 5, it was just killing him really, really hard. He was a strong dude. And he texted me and said, you jackass. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can say that word on the show, but I just did.
Yeah, we are swear word friendly on CANNAfact Friday.
Well, I don't want to be that guy.
We're all adults here.
I was a jackass. And so I responded back. I'm like, hey man, that's not nice. Don't call me a name. I was trying to hook you up. Why are you calling me a jackass? He said, it's a there and back mountain trail that I was on. And I didn't realize how far I'd gotten until I'd gotten about 12 miles in. And then I realized I had to come 12 miles out. He said, so what was supposed to be 5 ended up being 23. What the heck is that? And I was like, that's a 12 to 13%, Archive cut of Dosilato. So I think that beyond the terpene, like I love wine. Okay. I absolutely love wine. But for me, it's the end of the day, sun's down, all of my responsibilities are done. And it doesn't matter if I'm going to play a little music or watch TV or chill with the fam or the love on dogs. It's just kind of my evening thing. To me, I'm not going to wake up and have alcohol, right? Or do it throughout the day. People do. I don't. But for cannabis, there are definitely, the more you get into it, there are cultivars that really do well for this experience. And then equally, I can't sleep. I have insomnia or anxiety. There's ones that are great for that. I don't know how the terpenes fit into that conversation, because some of these cultivars that have vastly different experiences have very similar terp profiles. So I wonder if we're going to, as we get more science into this, and especially with how it reacts with us and our bodies, I'm curious to see where we're going to go with the science, what we're going to learn. My 2 cents.
Yeah. No, absolutely agree. I'm glad you brought up that part about day parts and different functioning needs, right? And there's so much more possibility in cannabis than with alcohol, to your point. You're probably not going to drink alcohol in the morning, but if you find that right combination of cannabis or the right strain or the right product that helps you have creativity and focus, then yeah, that could become part of your morning routine. And we're going to talk a little bit more about day parts when we jump into our quiz section. Before we move on though, anyone have any questions for Carrie regarding what we just talked about? If you do, please drop them in the chat.
Hit me with anything.
We will. You better be careful.
All right, let's do it. We need some game show music or something to kick this off. So this is gonna be
now
fun.
I don't. Is this where I have? Does our audience know that I have no idea what we're talking about?
Yep. So
okay.
Kerry was not given these answers ahead of time. He is going to guess the answers to these questions. So we're going to show 3 stats. The percentage is hidden. It's just a line. We're going to ask Carrie to guess. We're also going to invite our audience to guess. So audience, please feel free to drop in the chat what you think for this very first one, which is What percentage of cannabis consumers said they would be interested in visiting a cannabis consumption lounge? And I should preface this by saying this poll was taken before the pandemic. So that'll probably give you a little bit of a hint. Anybody want to take a stab at it in the chat? What do you think it is? Percentage.
You asking the chat or me?
Oh, we got one guess, 75%. We'll let a couple more guesses roll in and then we'll let Carrie give his answer. We got 70%. Okay, good guess from Peter. Anyone else want to take a stab at it?
Seems like a lot of people want to visit a consumption lounge.
Oh, we got more. 60% from Michael Rosenfeld, 85% from Jade, 65% from a LinkedIn user. I'm sorry, I can't see your name, but we'll find out who you are in a minute. 80% from John, 60% from Jamie, 65% from Tony, and 51% from Sam. So John got really, really close, but let's see what Carrie thinks.
Okay, I have to find, I can't, my screen is messed up, so I'm wanting to find John's answer.
No, you can't look at his answer. You just
piggyback for the sake of looking good. So John, call me, man. Tell me, obviously you're close. From what you read out, it sounds like everyone reported a majority, so greater than 50. I would agree with that. So if the question is how many would be interested in visiting largely something that doesn't exist yet in all markets, I'd have to say 85% would want to at least visit it one time to participate.
Excellent guess. Let's show the answer.
And the answer is?
81%. Super close.
Did anyone do 81 or 80?
We got 80% from John.
John.
We got a couple 85%. A lot of really close answers, but nobody got it right. Nice try, though.
Right.
Good job, John.
But super close.
And it should go to Michael Rosenfeld as well.
There it is. Good guesses, everyone. That's a good one.
All right. Well,
we're going to run this poll again now and see if it's changed after everything we've been through in the last couple of years.
That's true. I think a lot. I'm guessing that number would go lower just because people would be more concerned about spending time in a lounge consuming. But God knows we all want to get to that point at some point.
Yeah.
We're not afraid to go out and consume. Well, I've got the second quiz question for everybody. Why don't we jump to that? The next slide is, we ask cannabis consumers what dosage they prefer in edibles.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we're asking you what percentage prefer 10 megs of THC or less. And before you even take a shot, let's ask the folks that are listening. And I think it's really important to call out here, just as a side note. For example, a serving in Washington State is 10 megs of THC, but in Arizona, I believe it's 50 megs per serving. So, so in that case, for example, the 420 bar here in Washington State is sold in 10 pieces with 10 megs in each piece, and the bag contains 100 megs total, which is the same if it was a beverage as well. In Arizona, it's a 300 meg cap and a 50 meg per piece. So when you think about those, that's a 5-time difference between what somebody is consuming per serving in Arizona versus Washington. So that said, I'm curious to know what percentage of cannabis consumers prefer edibles with dosages of 10 megs of THC or less.
Yep. And we gave, a wide spectrum of answer choices, all the way up to 100 milligrams. And then people could even say if they wanted over 100 milligrams. So there's, to your point, David, a lot of differences in different markets and with different brands out there going after the high dose consumer and some people going after the low dose consumer. But this is just overall nationwide, what percentage would prefer their edible to be 10 milligrams of THC or less. And we have some guesses rolling in. Okay, Jeremy Kinzer guessed 50%. Peter Buonacor, I hope I didn't butcher your name. I'm sorry if I did. Guessed 40%. Sam Fournier, 48%. Jamie Quider, 75%. Jeremy wrote 50 milligrams, sounds like a nighttime dose. Yep. And Tony Spire, 53%.
And it's also important just to call out, Sam said 5 milligrams per serving in Massachusetts. So if you look at the difference just right there, that's a 10-time difference in a per serving, which really begs the question, when is the federal government going to organize or orchestrate, or when will the individual states come together and start to talk with one another to say, hey, a serving is 10 times more in your state than it is in ours. Maybe we should reconsider this, or maybe we should rethink this. But it's interesting. It's certainly interesting. So, Carrie, we've seen a few different percentages. What's your thought on this?
Okay, I don't think I'm the best person to answer this because I am absolutely flower. I'm a flower head, and I have a horrible edible story. In the Seattle airport, I raised my hand. I realized I missed a flight, and not only did I do that, but I had been reading the same page of the same book for about 45 minutes. So edibles got in there and messed me up. In the world that I live in, the edibles are largely solventless, and I do think that a solventless edible consumer might differ than a distillate edible consumer. I would like to say that 90% of people would prefer every serving to have 10 or less, under the idea that they could have more control over the end goal. I think it's easier to add than it is to take away when it comes to edibles. I mean, edibles, that one made my big toe high. It was ridiculous. So I would have rather backed up on that one. You know what I mean?
Well, it's interesting too that you not only you but Sam and a few others had called out, the difference between distillate and some of the other either processes or ingredients, and how those affect us differently. But yeah, interesting. And the answer is 25.
I was way off.
25%.
Cannabis consumers prefer edibles with dosages of 10 megs of THC or less, which might talk to the move toward microdosing, and in particular in beverages, right? As people move into beverages, they tend to session the beverages like they do, a 6-pack a year or that sort of thing. So they're nursing these things over time. So I think, and Carrie, to your point, microdosing probably makes more sense initially to figure out where you are and what your tolerance is. But it's easy to to find yourself in the airport missing your flight if you're not careful.
Okay.
And to provide some context here, some people responded to this survey saying that they weren't sure what their preferred dosage would be, and that was 23% who weren't sure. You kind of see it like a barbell, right? There's sort of like a chunk who like to keep it low, and then there's a chunk on the other side who are like, no, bring it on. I want the strong stuff. I want to not feel my toe anymore. 8% would prefer to have a dosage of over 100 milligrams, which to me sounds scary. But for some people, that's what they're about. And that could be the medical consumer also, who is dealing with chronic pain or some other condition that they would really need a higher dose. Right.
Another thing to add to that, when shoppers go into stores, so for example, in Washington State, initially, they would have let's say a beverage SKU, and it would be, let's say, cola. And that cola would be available in a 10 meg, a 30 meg, a 70 meg, and a 100 meg. Well, very quickly, the retailers basically said, we don't have room for all these SKUs. We can't have the same flavor and 5 dosing profiles here. And really what happened, I think, also the the buyers came in and they said, wow, this bottle is this much for 10 megs of THC, but it's that much for 100 megs. Well, the value, that they do the math and they say, I'm going to go for the 100 megs. So what we found in Washington State is this sort of ramp up, if you will, to the higher megs and the higher dosing. Again, whether they drink 100 megs all at once, which is really 10 servings, that will put most people to sleep for the weekend. But I think there's that math that people do and say, hey, I could purchase this and get more THC for less money, and which starts to take them down this trail to purchase higher dosed products often.
Yeah, that's a really good point, David. I was chatting with a friend of mine, Nareth Khan from Sapa Investments out in Utah, and he was saying he sees the same thing where people will purchase edibles that have a high dosage per serving with the intention of then cutting it up and taking little pieces. So
Gotcha.
that factor is definitely at play here also.
Right. It's interesting too, in Washington State, not only did it go to the higher dose, but it also went from full bottles of beverages to tinctures. So Sinners and Saints has a tincture which has more than a normal serving. Well, it's still capped at 100 megs, but now instead of 100 megs in this, it's 100 megs in this.
I think that I've had that one in the last few months. I was in Washington and I stopped at a shop. Is that the one that looks their brand that looks like a 5-hour energy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's bathed in like vitamin. It's like a B complex based.
Correct.
That was awesome. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it's interesting. So again, I've never had a 5-hour energy shot. It's just, I don't know. It's not something I gravitate toward. But it's interesting. It's also interesting to see certain age groups gravitating towards certain form factors and products, and just being more attuned to to taking a shot of a tincture or a smaller shot of a 5-hour energy like product.
Right.
So should we move on to our next stat?
Throw down.
Y'all ready? All right. So for this one, we were asking people about what was their preferred form factor, and we broke it out into day parts. As we were talking about earlier, I think that's going to be a big factor, right? There's going to be something that you're interested in that's going to help you be active and creative in the morning or the daytime. And then there's going to be something that you're going to gravitate toward at night when you want to wind down, relax, feel free, stop thinking about work too much. So for this one, we were like, hey, really specifically, survey people, ask them between 5 and 9, what is your preferred method of consumption? So take a guess. What percentage of people will be smoking and what percentage will be eating edibles?
So on smoking, are we talking like vape, concentrate, and flower?
We didn't specify which way. We didn't get more specific than that. It was smoking was an option. Edibles was an option. There were some other options too.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, I see Diana Rose has 45. 45 is Diana's lucky number. I see that.
Right on, Diana. That's awesome. Just stay with it. Just keep throwing that one out there. That's awesome.
You'll get it right eventually, we promise.
80% smoke, 20% edibles. Good guess. Jamie, 50% smoking, 50% edibles. Interesting. Who else wants to throw a guess?
I see there's a trend. They all add up to 100%.
Oh, yeah, it will not add up to 100% because there's other form factors. Just to give you a little hint there. 25% smoke, 75% smoke, 25% eat from Sam. Peter guessed 60% smoke and 40% choose edibles.
And Adriana, as we talk about this too, we should probably just talk about, things that have happened during the pandemic. For example, people focused on more discrete consumption because they're home perhaps and their family is around. So they need to be more thoughtful about how and what they consume. also during the pandemic, as we discussed last week, the respiratory components and how people were concerned about that, so there were people that were smoking less during that time as well. So different things to think about in terms of, how this plays out.
Yeah. And along with that too, I think there's also a little bit of stocking up behavior with not knowing when the next time you would be able to get into a dispensary, or just wanting to take fewer trips out in public because you're concerned about exposure. So you might gravitate toward a non-flower product that has a longer shelf life potentially.
Absolutely. And to that point, just very quickly, I think what was really interesting is there was a post on LinkedIn from Jocelyn Sheltroy yesterday, I believe it was, and it spoke about how sales went up as the winter storm was racing across the country to get to the East Coast. And they were able to track almost in real time to see how people were going to the adult use stores and stocking up as this storm was coming in, which I think is pretty incredible to start to see, to connect the data back to a storm moving across the country and everybody saying, hey, we're going to be locked out, or locked down for a few days. So
stock up.
That's a great context to add too, right? Yeah, it wouldn't only be a pandemic that would make you stock up. There could be many reasons for stocking up. Okay, we have a couple more guesses here in the chat. We have from Jeremy, 32% smoke, 42% choose edibles. Vanessa guesses 40% smoking and 60% edibles. And I think that's it for the guesses. So let's let Carrie chime in.
90% smoking.
He's doubling down, Adriana.
That's it.
And remember, 90. It will not add up to 100%.
So if in my mind, if smoking means we're igniting something, when I see 5 to 9, I think people are home, they're more private, or they're in a more controlled I cannot speak, social circle.
Yep.
To me, that's flame it up. Come on. I mean, 90%. Let's smoke some joints in the evenings. What's the problem here?
All right. And then what about the edibles?
5%.
90% smoking and 5% edibles.
Because I think an edible, again, I run complete risk of being wrong, but in the evening, if someone's going to say edible for medicinal, then I would go, well, what about RSO or tincture?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of the edibles have sugars or just things in them that maybe I don't want in my body at 9 o'clock at night when I'm trying to go to bed,
Yep.
That's
true.
where I'm at.
And that's come up actually quite a bit lately, just in terms of edibles and all the sugar, all the other things that are in the edibles that, that people are concerned about. So there seems to be, I'm starting to see this trend of, I don't want to call it diet edibles, but an understanding of the high amounts of sugar and fats and some of the other things that are in edibles. I think people are starting to get smart around those things as well too.
We're seeing a lot of vegan options too.
Yeah, I mean, edibles are definitely discreet, but like I don't eat sugar, so I'm pretty selective, on edibles. There's just not much out there for me.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's reveal the answer.
Oh, snap. I was way off.
Yeah, 38% are smoking and 19% are consuming edibles. And the rest is split up amongst the other form factors. Maybe we'll reveal what those are next time. So awesome. Thanks, Carrie. You've been a great sport in guessing these.
Hey, sorry, I was so wrong.
Don't be sorry. We were trying to.
I'm not sorry. I had fun. And I'm just here to have fun. So awesome.
And that's what it's about, right?
Yeah.
That's it.
That is. Well, Carrie, we thank you for hanging out with us today and for joining us. We've come to our 10:45 moment or thereabouts, where we start to close out the show. But your insight was awesome, and your experience is awesome. What you're doing in the industry,
thank you,
is required and needed. So we appreciate all that you do.
Absolutely. So I would say thank you so much for having me on the show, and for everyone that came on in the audience and the participation. Thank you so, so much. This is really good. Keep this thing going. And I look forward to being a fan and being in that chat zone on future Fridays. So shout out everybody. Have a great Friday. Peace.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie.
And before you go, I was going to say, we should tell people where you could get that shirt. That shirt is awesome.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not revealing that.
Okay.
The shirts are black market.
That's right.
Actually, okay, truth. Get on, you'll see it. Just type it online. It's right there in front of you, and it's really cheap. And I was the only dude. So
don't give it away if you don't want to.
Kristen Yoder, she's on LinkedIn. She started a company called Cynical Stoner. This is not it. And I bought a hoodie from her, and it said terpenes greater than sign THC. And everywhere I go, people are trying to pull it off. And then my other favorite one she does is indica sativa is lazy marketing.
Seen that.
That's good.
That.
Good for her.
That's funny. I know she had another one, which was don't buy weed from Chads or something like that. But anyway,
yeah.
Shirt. Thanks for wearing it. I'm going to figure out where that shirt came from.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Again, thank you so much. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you, Carrie.
Thanks, Carrie.
Thank you.
Well, so that said, we thank Carrie for joining us and giving us his insight. We want to thank you to our viewers and our listeners for joining us today. We're excited to bring the community together every week with data and with experts that can come together and share and enlighten us. And if we can walk away on a Friday with a little bit more knowledge or the ability to connect some of the dots that we try to connect and understand the context of which the data we read all the time, help us better understand the playing field and the evolving industry. That's really what it's all about. So we thank everybody for joining us today. We do have a CANNAfact Friday newsletter with stats, and you can see right now the URL to sign up for that, and we're pretty excited about that. So there's lots of information there, which will keep you going all the way through the rest of the week. So when we come back again on Fridays, we've got more information.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely sign up for that to get the CANNAfact delivered to your inbox ahead of time. And thank you everyone for your comments. I love the participation. I can really feel those Friday vibes in the room today. And one more thing to note, and if people who are in the audience or listening are interested in cannabis as a concept, and if you're not interested in cannabis, I'd be curious to know why you're here. But definitely check out David's book, Branding Bud, The Commercialization of Cannabis. It's available on Amazon and on brandingbud.com.
Right on. Thank you, Adriana. We're excited for next week's topic and our guest. And next week we'll be talking with Dale Sky Jones, who is not only an activist, a mother, a great person, and the co-founder of Oaksterdam University. And what we'll be talking about is words and how important words are in our industry. And I think we saw it today a little bit. There's people using different words for different things, whether it's related to terpenes and aromatherapy or distillate or all the other things. So we're going to try to cover a few words next week and regroup and get everybody on the same page and get a better understanding of why people use certain words and how they feel about them and what their definitions are about them.
Yeah. So yeah, people in the industry have really strong feelings about what to call cannabis. So we wanted to find out if consumers feel the same way, and we'll reveal those next Friday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. for our East Coast people. So join us then.
Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you, Adriana. Thank you again to Carrie. Thank you to the team that supports us. And most importantly, thank you for the folks that joined in and participated. We look forward to seeing you next Friday, as every Friday we do. And by the way, if anybody has any topics they'd like to shout out, feel free to think ahead of time and throw those topics out too, and we'd be happy to focus on those as well. But thank you everybody for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next Friday at 10 a.m. PST and 1 p.m. EST. Thank you.
Thanks, friends. Have a great weekend. Bye.
See you next week.